Phone number, should you wish to call in, is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. Y'all, can we talk about environmentalists for just a moment? Environmentalists are the bad guys. I have decided absolutely that the environmentalists, they're the bad guys. The obsession, even CBS News is now in on the act. If you watched Godzilla, King of the Monsters, it's the environmentalists are the bad guys. In Marvel's the superhero universe, Thanos is essentially an environmentalist who wants to heal the universe by wiping out half the population. Environmentalists make for good bad guys. Sonny Bunch, who writes at the Washington Post, has talked about this before. Let me see if I can find this. Sonny Bunch, Washington Post environmentalists. He's got to yes. Environmentalists make good movie villains because they want to make your real life worse. This is from 2019 and it still holds up. Radical environmentalists have really been taking it on the chin at the multiplex. They are perfect villains for our times. Well-intentioned enough to often seem somewhat reasonable, but meddlesome busybodies whose hopes and dreams are to radically reduce standards of living in order to effect some utopian scheme or another that will return the world to an unsullied Eden. Thanos wanted to wipe out half of humanity. He totally down with Paul Ehrlich and his whole population bomb nonsense. Aquaman had King Orm, Patrick Wilson's character, wanted to unite the underworld clans of Atlantis to create an unstoppable army to destroy life on the land masses because they were polluters. Kingsman, the Secret Service, it was a tech guru played by Samuel L. Jackson, who was the villain who wanted a clean, pristine Earth by wiping out people. And then you've got Godzilla, King of the Monsters, and more. The environmentalists are terrible, good supervillains because they want to do stuff like CBS News now is in on the act of, you got to eat bugs. Let's all go eat cicadas. The number of stories, Popular Science, Wired, CBS, Washington Post, the New York Times, various food websites I visit, they're all recipes for cicadas. You know, not a single one of those people is out there eating cicadas. And by the way, I don't even have a cicada issue at my house. No, I think we have a different wave of cicadas that'll show up in another couple of years. But this 17-year cicada thing that's all up there, everybody in Washington and New York is talking about it because it's affecting them. It's like the freaking weather. If it snows in New York City, wall-to-wall weather coverage in the mainstream media about snow. If it snows in Macon, Georgia, they couldn't care less. But they got cicadas now, so the entire nation has to give two pieces of poop about what Washington and New York are experiencing because the media cares. So if the media cares, you've got to care, and you got to go eat cicadas. Meanwhile, cyber security experts are saying there's been a cyber attack on the world's largest meat supplier. It might be days before production resumes due to an organized cyber security attack. Thousands of meat workers had no work for a second day on Tuesday after a cyber attack crippled the world's largest meat processing company in Australia. A government minister said it might be days before production resumes. JBS is Australia's largest meat and food processing company with 47 facilities across the country. JBS USA said in a statement from Greeley, Colorado on Monday, it was the target on Sunday of an organized cybersecurity attack affecting some of its servers, supporting its North American and Australian IT systems. Now, was it an attack like what happened to Colonial Pipeline? Or is it the environmentalists? You know, the environmentalists, they want us to stop eating beef. This is one of the things. So, the Biden administration doesn't have to pressure you and me to stop eating meat. All the Biden administration has to do is say it needs to be done and watch as the American media trots out article after article telling you to eat bugs and worms. And environmentalists start running horror stories about meat processing facilities to try to turn your stomach so you don't want to eat it. And then the hackers attack. It's the same thing with like SUVs, that they want you to have fewer kids. So the environmentalists pounce on these companies, the car manufacturers, to get them to reduce the size of cars, make them less safe. And then you can't have a large family, or you got to get a 15-passenger van, which I know families that are large and have done that. The environmentalists want to ruin your life and drive up gas prices. Oh, I have a story about this. There is a concerted effort by environmentalists to buy shares in global oil-producing companies like Exxon and Chevron and BP, and then force them to not actually produce oil to drive up prices. Wait until you get a load of the story, which we will get into when we come back right here on the Erick Erickson Show. Hi there. It is Erick Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. You can always go to ewerickson.com and you get the live stream there, get the recipes, everything. And I have committed to rolling out the recipes more regularly. Now, I got to talk about Ambrose Evans Pritchard. He's got a column in the Telegraph. I subscribe to newspapers and websites all over the world so I can do good show prep for you people. It's my gift to you. And he's got one that is worth talking about. Environmentalists should think twice before celebrating the week that shook big oil to the core. Green activists' victories against Shell, ExxonMobil, and Chevron are pregnant with unintended consequences. One of them is to interfere with future crude supply just as the market tightens ineluctably as the result of declining oil wells and chronic lack of past investment, increasing the risk of a violent price spike in the early 2020s and a disruptive shock before the world has reduced its economic dependence on oil. It is to tackle global warming the wrong way round, vilifying the drillers, when the essential problem for the rest of us, global consumers, governments, and above all else, Xi Jinping's China. That's the biggest problem. Now, what's going on here? Well, in the Netherlands, Royal Dutch Shell has been ordered. Royal Dutch Shell, one of the world's largest oil companies, has been ordered to stop producing oil by a Dutch court. No, I'm not making that up. It was ordered by a district court in The Hague last Wednesday to slash emissions 45% by 2030, in line with United Nations guidance, including Scope 3 emissions of hypothetical drivers who burn their gas. That's right, due to hypothetical drivers. With Exxon and Chevron and others, it is activist shareholders were able to force those companies to make changes and to reduce their amount of emissions. Now, part of it is these oil companies are working on clean hydrogen and synthetic fuels that would reduce their emissions. The problem, however, is that environmentalists don't like these sorts of things because it allows the oil companies to continue on drilling where they may find oil. And so they're working very hard to buy shares in petroleum companies like Exxon and Chevron and then shut them down from the inside. Now, here's a problem. The world's not ready for this. You're not ready for this. Let me ask you a question. Do you have a car, a vehicle, not just a car, a truck, a car, an SUV? Do you have one? And if you do, is it electric? Overwhelmingly, the answer is no. Overwhelmingly, the answer is yes, you have a vehicle, and no, it's not electric. So we still need gas. And what the rich environmentalists who are buying shares in these companies are doing is they're creating a tax on poor people. They're driving up the cost of living for poor people. Because a gas car tends to be cheaper, definitely is cheaper than a Tesla. Even the lowest end Tesla, you can get a gas car for cheaper. In fact, hang on a second. I've got a Yukon Denali, a 2019. I'm thinking I got it from a place in Atlanta called Jim Ellis. I'm thinking it's got about 46,000 miles on it. I've had it for 3 years. Normally I swap out my car after 3 years because normally I have about 90,000 miles after 3 years. But I don't at this moment because I haven't been driving due to the pandemic. And I'm thinking, I just looked at the used car resale value of my vehicle, and it's about $20,000 more than what I owe on it, I could go upgrade to a 2021 Denali and have my gas guzzler. But the question I have is, has GM and Ford does this? I do not want a Ford SUV. I rented one. I took my dad to Florida. And the Fords and a lot of cars now have this horrible, horrible thing where the engine stops. You're at the stoplight. It's 2 million degrees out with 100% humidity in Orlando, Florida, and the engine cuts off, which affects the air conditioner. Who the hell thought that was a good idea? Ford, apparently. I don't want a Ford. I'm sorry. And GM better not go that route with the Denali. I don't like the back of the new Yukons, but the Denali one that doesn't look quite as station wagony, I'm totally willing to upgrade as long as I can get the one with all the options. Now, the 2021 Corolla, this is what I was looking up, is $20,025. $20,025, and it gets 40 miles to the gallon on the highway, 31 in the city. That is cheaper than the base model Tesla. If you're a poor person, are you going to go for a Corolla, a used Corolla, or a new Tesla? There aren't very many used ones. The environmentalists want to raise your cost of gas. So you get your car and then you can't afford to fill it up. And they want to force you into public transportation the year after a global pandemic with an airborne, highly communicable virus that could kill you. The environmentalists are the bad guys. And we need to be paying attention to it. And the other thing are the maskers. Pete Buttigieg is out there saying that it's respectful to continue wearing your mask after you've gotten vaccinated. What sort of message is this? Why is it respectful to continue wearing your mask? I don't understand why I need to keep wearing mine in airports and on airplanes. The White House, effective the week after the 4th of July, is going to let all the workers come back. Are they all going to have to wear masks even though they have vaccines? I don't think they should. I think it's time for offices to reopen. And I think it's time for airports and airlines to get rid of their mask mandates at this point. There's no reason to continue the mask mandate. At this point, people need to, they got to take matters into their own hands. They got to take their life into their own hands. There was the AV Club is a left-wing movie review site, which is lamenting the opening of theaters again. That's right. In America today, you can go to a movie at a movie theater again. I love the movie. Y'all, I miss going to the movies. I miss movie theater popcorn. I miss the giant boxes of Milk Duds that drive my dentist crazy. I miss sitting in the theater and watching previews for movies I have no interest in seeing. I miss going late at night when there are maybe 5 other people in the movie theater. A Quiet Place 2 is out. I did not see A Quiet Place. I know the concept. I don't like scary movies. When I was a kid, I grew up in Dubai, and we had a 3-bedroom house. And so it was my choice, either share a room with my oldest sister, who was redheaded and mean. I love her. Or with my middle sister, who was obsessed with 80s boy bands, Duran Duran being chief among them. So I convinced my parents that the TV room should be my bedroom. And the rule was I could have the TV room as my bedroom, but if anybody wanted to watch something, I had to let them watch it. And my sisters discovered that they could turn on scary movies, and me as a 5, 6, 7-year-old would be in the room with them while they're watching these scary movies. I'll never forget Friday the 13th. I was scared to leave the house. I was little, and they're doing this to me. And my parents too. I mean, yes, I could have left the room, but where was I going to sleep? On the front porch? It's Dubai. It's like 100 degrees outside at night. I don't like scary movies. So I've got mad respect for the whole concept of A Quiet Place, and apparently A Quiet Place Part 2. It's in theaters now. It's even better than the first one. But the left is upset that movie theaters are open. The left is highly upset that movie theaters are allowing unvaccinated people in with no proof of their vaccine. So the AV Club runs a story that movie theaters are open and the unvaccinated don't have to wear masks, and neither do the lying SOBs who lie about having gotten the vaccine. That was their take. You know what? If you've gotten the vaccine and they haven't, who cares? It's the assumption of the risk at this point. If you haven't had the vaccine and you want to go to a theater without a mask on, who cares? Who am I to judge? The moral hazards that the left is creating. So the environmentalists, you can't have a big car anymore. You can't have reasonably priced gas anymore. You can't have a reasonably priced beef anymore. God help you if you eat chicken, given what they do to chickens. You can't do that. You got to eat cicadas, and don't go to the theater. You're not allowed to go to the theater. You may get the virus from someone, and who cares if it's your choice? It's irresponsible of you to go to a movie theater at all, period, end of story, and their environmental pollutants. These people just want to be miserable. They want to be unhappy about stuff. It's like Lena Wynn. Lena Wynn, the former Planned Parenthood head, she wasn't as into killing children as they wanted her to be, so they pushed her out the door. And now she's on TV upset about the phrase China virus.
There is a reason why the World Health Organization has a system for naming diseases. And specifically, they say, do not call diseases by the country of origin for fear that it would spark harassment, discrimination, and violence against those people. And in fact, we've seen that right here in the U.S. We've had shop owners who are Asian American getting their shops burned down or graffitied over, blaming them for coronavirus. We've had doctors, nurses, medical students spat upon and chased out of work and patients refusing to be treated by them, saying that they are the reason why coronavirus exists in this country. I mean, I think words have real consequences, and it's up to all of us to try to correct that. And by the way, I'll just say that it is really important for us to get to the bottom of what led to coronavirus. If in fact it was a lab leak or animal spillover, we need to know the answer. But let's use a scientific process for determining this. Let's not adjudicate this in the political realm and jump to conclusions.
But all of life is politics, Lena Wynn. And also, if someone attacks someone for being of Asian descent over the virus, they're a terrible person. But it's not that common, we now know. In fact, it turns out that the organization that manufactured that data was including Donald Trump's speeches as evidence of the hate crimes. The left just wants to be mad about stuff. Now, the right's in on this as well. Over the weekend, Kamala Harris's social media team tweeted out, "Enjoy your long weekend," with a big smiling picture of Kamala Harris. And people are right. I can't believe she's not talking about Memorial Day. She did eventually talk about Memorial Day. She sent out a tweet on Memorial Day about Memorial Day. But people were enraged. Now, part of me thinks she does need a new social media team, but this is a woman who lost her presidential campaign because her team was obsessed with what people said on Twitter. And I suspect the reason they put that out is because they knew it would rile up people on the right, and everyone else be like, why are you pissed off about this? At the same time that this was happening, General Mike Flynn, was at a QAnon conference in Texas. And someone asked him, why couldn't there be a Laotian-style military coup in this country to restore Donald Trump? And Mike Flynn said there should be. Those were his words caught on video to the question, why can't there be a military-style coup in this country? On Veterans Day weekend, a former general, Mike Flynn, who advised the former president, said there should be a military coup. On the same stage, Sidney Powell is peddling more QAnon conspiracy nonsense that this August, Donald Trump is going to be restored to the presidency. That the stealing of the election will be proven and Donald Trump will be put back in the White House. Time against him not credited, therefore he could run for a third term or some such. I don't quite get it. This is all nonsense. This is like caca baloney Bolshevik, if you know what I mean. And yet they are spreading this stuff, and people in the crowd were cheering them on as if it was true. People just want to be outraged about stuff these days. I don't quite understand it, but I got to say, it is a particular disease on the left, insistent on being outraged about everything in the world today. The world is improving, and they want to make our lives miserable because, deep down, they're miserable. Their eschatology is pretty terrible that even if you start recycling, we're all going to burn anyway. There's nothing to be happy about in progressivism. Nothing. They take joy only in seeing white people fail, I guess. That seems to be their joy these days, is watching white people go woke, and everything else, they're just miserable people.
I really do like his opinion on things.
Greetings. Welcome. It is Erick Erickson here. The phone number, should you wish to call in, 877-973-7425. To the phones we go. Carrie, you're going to be up first. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi there. How are you?
Just fine.
What's going on?
Well, first of all, I wanted to congratulate you for mentioning the Medal of Honor awardee who recently passed away, the last living World War II one.
Charles Coolidge, yeah.
It's really a shame that the last living one from World War II. It's amazing that the news never really publicizes something like that. I mean, there's only 103 living recipients right now.
Right.
And these should be mentioned every time they pass away. But I do want to correct one thing.
All right.
No one wins the Medal of Honor.
Well, yeah. Oh, that yes. I'm glad you said that.
You have
Yes.
to be in competition.
Yep. It's not exactly something anyone goes out and says, "I'm going to win this one." Yes.
Exactly.
Well, and you know, Carrie, just as an aside here, I remember it was during Obama's administration that the last living veteran of World War I died. A last American veteran of World War I died. And I to this day think that they should have placed his body in the Capitol Rotunda and had a state funeral for him, just in honor of all of those who fought in World War I, which is somewhat of a forgotten war for American involvement. And I certainly hope when the time comes that we reach that point with World War II, that some thought is put in to honor the greatest generation with that commemoration. Not for that person in particular, but for all of them.
I think you're absolutely right. We need to pay a lot of respect to the people who put their life on the line for their country.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially those who receive the Medal of Honor. I'm good friends with one of them, and he never really talks about it.
Right.
You'd never know he had it unless he happens to be in uniform and you see him wearing it.
My goodness.
But it's very unusual award. So
yeah. Well, look, I got to let you go there. I got about 15 seconds left,
okay.
Gary. Thank you very much. 877-973-7425 if you want to be a part of the program. When we come back, the media cannot let go of Donald Trump. They want Donald Trump to go away, but they themselves cannot let him go away. There's a series of stories out in Politico today that highlight this and the contradictions. Hello and welcome. Glad to have you with me. It is Erick Erickson, coast to coast these days. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. I'm only going to touch on this story briefly before I get into what I really want to talk about. We're about to have the UAP report out. The Pentagon refers to them as unidentified aerial phenomena, not unidentified flying objects. So no UFOs, it's UAPs. And I am convinced that what we are seeing is probably China or Russia, or maybe even ourselves, and not necessarily unidentified flying objects or little green men. Now, I will say that based on some of the reports, it does appear that some of the vehicles do appear to defy the laws of physics. For example, according to some reports, a teardrop-shaped object descended from 80,000 feet to the surface of the ocean and then shot off at 13,000 miles per hour with limited acceleration. If that's true, well then okay, there's something there. But if it is true, there's one of the caveats there. If it is true, we don't know that it actually is true. We will find stuff out, but I'm more and more convinced there's got to be logical explanations. And just because a lot of people are suddenly talking about it doesn't mean it's little green men. I'm open to angels and demons more than I am little green men. You do have this whole thing called the speed of light, as opposed to dimensional portals to the things unseen. But nonetheless, I'm fascinated in the topic. But I actually have something else I want to talk about here. I was amazed to go to the Politico today. And as much as the news media wants Donald Trump gone, the American news media can't help but obsess over Donald Trump for ratings. I mean, have you seen 2/3 of CNN's audience has gone away? MSNBC's audience has cratered out, and not only has it cratered out, but on the weekends, it's only people over 55 watching MSNBC. I mean, compared to Fox, Fox has a couple 100,000 young people who watch it on the weekend. MSNBC does not. It's got 55,000 young people total watched MSNBC on Sunday recently. It's insane. No, I'm sorry. It was 55,000 total people watched it, and hardly any of them were young. So I opened the Politico today, doing show prep, and there are 3 stories. I want to read you first the headlines. Here's headline 1. This was the lead story at Politico this morning. An evangelical battle of the generations, to embrace Trump or not. It's about Liberty University. It kicks off. The starting point is Liberty University. Headline number 2, right underneath that one. Put Trump on the ballot in 2022? No thanks, some Democrats say. Headline number 3, Republicans fear Trump will lead to a lost generation of talent. Donald Trump lives rent-free in the media's head. He will not be on the ballot in 2022, and the media is obsessed with him and the future of the GOP. And a lot of it, you do have to understand, is through the lens of those who never liked him to begin with, wish he would go away, want nothing to do with him, and condemn him for everything anyway. Now, I want to focus not on the Liberty University and evangelical story, but on these 2 stories. Here's the first. Republicans fear Trump will lead to a lost generation of talent. In conversations with more than 20 lawmakers, ex-lawmakers, top advisors, and aides, a common concern has emerged that a host of national and statewide Republicans are either leaving office or may not choose to pursue it for fear they can't survive politically in the current GOP. The worry, these Republicans say, is that the party is embracing personality over policy, and that it is short-sighted to align with Trump, who lost the general election and continues to alienate large swaths of the voting public with his grievances and false claims that the 2020 election was stolen. Trump has driven sitting GOP lawmakers and political aspirants into early retirement ever since he burst onto the scene, but there was hope that things would change after his election loss. Instead, his influence over the GOP appears to be as solid as ever, and the impact of those early shockwaves remain visible. When asked, for instance, if he feared the 45th president was causing a talent drain from the GOP ranks, former Florida Governor Jeb Bush perhaps inadvertently offered a personal demonstration of the case. "Thank you for checking in," he replied. "I'm out of politics and life is good." That's the first article to focus on. And now there's this. Put Trump on the ballot in 2022? No thanks, say some Dems. Trump is a Republican problem and a Republican cancer that they need to cut out of their party, Representative Stephanie Murphy says. But that's their problem. As Donald Trump cannonballs back into national headlines, more scandal-ridden than ever. Aha, don't you like the editorial in the start of the sentence? It turns out the Republicans aren't the only ones who don't want to fixate on the former president. Many House Democrats feel the same way. With their fragile House majority on the line, many Democrats are imploring their colleagues not to take the Trump bait after last November's referendum on the ex-president ended up costing their party a dozen seats. Instead, those Democrats are eager to deploy a policy-heavy playbook to help stave off a potential midterm whipping and are careful to avoid putting Trumpism on the ballot next November, too. The former president is now a private citizen, and it appears our justice system is handling whatever potential misdeeds he may or may not have committed, said Representative Stephanie Murphy, Democrat of Florida, among roughly 36 endangered Democrats who will need to win in order for their party to keep the House. Now, let's just pause 1 moment, please. The Politico has these stories literally sitting next to each other today. One says the Republican Party leaders are fretful of Donald Trump's continued hold on the party, and the other starts with this sentence: "It turns out the Republicans aren't the only ones who don't want to fixate on the former president." So which is it? Which is it? Maybe it's the media that's fixated on Donald Trump. Listen, the man was in charge of the Republican Party and to a degree still is. He was the elected president of the United States of America. He could run again. And he needs to at least keep up the idea of running to have clout in 2022 before Republicans move on to other things. But no man save Jesus Christ himself is immortal, or at least will live on this planet forever in the present time. Resurrection and theology excluded from the statement, of course. Donald Trump is not going to live forever. And, you know, the Democratic Party went through years of being Barack Obama's party more than it was the Democratic Party. These things happen to parties. There are Republicans who are fretful that the best and the brightest are leaving because of Donald Trump. But if they can't survive and navigate the waters of Donald Trump, are they the best and the brightest in the GOP? Essentially, what the lament is that people who don't like Donald Trump are leaving the Republican Party or can't get elected. I have to assure you of something. It is a fact not mentioned in these reports. There are a vast array of elected Republicans who hate Donald Trump. You know it and I know it. And somehow they've been able to convince the voters that they are Donald Trump's best friend. They don't like him, but they certainly give lip service to him. The idea that the Republican Party can't move forward and is losing all sorts of smart people. Now, there are some. I know some younger, mostly men in the Republican Party, although some women too, who have gotten out of politics right now because of the Trump phenomenon. They don't particularly like it, or they're helping candidates they don't necessarily think can win. But if you actually pay attention to what the voters are doing around the country in special elections, they have gone for candidates who are supportive of Donald Trump, but are not the most Trumpy of the candidates. And that in and of itself, I think, is pretty telling, that when you look at the Republican Party around the country, the voters, not the politicians, not the political consultants, not the elite, not the media, the voters, when asked to pick candidates in primaries or special elections, are picking Republican candidates who are superficially pro-Trump, but also stand for something themselves. But let's be real here. One of these concerns is that your focus, the party, this is a quote from the party, the worry, these Republicans say, is the party is embracing personality over policy, and that it is short-sighted to align with Trump, who lost the general election. Now, he won last time, and he came within 43,000 votes of winning this time. But pay attention beneath the Donald Trump line on the ticket. What happened? The GOP did really, really well. They almost took back the House of Representatives. They would have held the Senate, but for Republicans in Georgia getting cold feet, not showing up at the polls. The GOP did pretty well. And by the way, they did it with policy, supporting police, pushing back against the culture. And this is ultimately what all of this is about, is a lot of these voters, a lot of these Republican consultants, they find the culture war stuff gross. They are totally on board progressive, secular lifestyles. They are totally on board secular leftism. They want fiscal conservatism at a time fiscal conservatism is kind of a dead end for the GOP. But they're okay with social liberalism. Some of them, they're nominally pro-choice, but there's an ick factor for them. Here comes Donald Trump and his culture warriors, and they're fighting the left on cultural issues. And these guys are like, this is kind of gross. I'm okay with drag queen story time. They say that, not me. That reminds me, we got to get into Blue's Clues and their drag queen story time nonsense. Yes, Blue's Clues of all things. But these Republican consultants who lament it, that's really their concern here, is yes, there is a personality. There is a cult of personality within the GOP. We used to laugh at the Democrats and say they were all the cult of personality, but it's the GOP too. But, for years, the Republicans ran on repealing Obamacare, and these very same Republicans, I suspect, who are the ones lamenting we're not doing policy, they're the ones who scuttled the effort to get rid of Obamacare. We've been running for years on limited government, and I suspect these are the very same Republicans who lamented when we actually did hold the budget hostage until we got sequestration. So the policies that they seem to want to run on are the ones they like to run on but never actually implement, so why even have them to begin with? But more than that, it's also, again, notable that this story literally is right next door on the same front page of Politico to one that says the Republicans aren't even talking about Trump on the campaign trail, and the Democrats don't want to either. So which is it? Probably a little of both, but it's not nearly as exciting when you say it that way.
I really do like his opinion on things.
Erick Erickson.